Well, hello, it's Greg Otten here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm going to do a video today on how to plan out your garden space. I've seen lots of different content on YouTube on this, different YouTubers showing you how they do it. And what I've noticed is that the vast majority of them refer to using some sort of special software for the garden plan. A software you have to either buy or you have to download. And even then, in that software, you have to use that software to generate a picture that looks like your garden. And that might be hard, that might be easy, depending on the shape of your garden and so on. And anyway, my general personality, I'm apprehensive about installing anything on my computer. I'm very frugal, so I don't want to spend any money. But even with free software, I'm always nervous that some weird thing is going to get on my computer and mess it up. So I developed this approach that I use where I just use Microsoft Excel. You could do this using PowerPoint or Word, but it's software that comes with most operating systems. And that you get that Microsoft package, Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint. It really depends on what you're good with. I've got more skill with Excel than those other things, and since it's already on my computer anyway, and it's a fairly ubiquitous piece of software, it just made sense to me. And all I really do is I take a picture of my garden, paste it into Excel, and put a bunch of text boxes with the words in them. So if you know what I'm talking about, now you know how to do it. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to walk you through how I go about doing that. And also I'll take you back and just show you some different pictures of my garden over time, and try to speak to the idea of using a garden plan and why it makes sense and how it can really assist you in making the best use of your space. Also, I did a podcast on this very topic last year, but there was just like one pitch, and my podcasts are audio, so there's no real dynamic visual aid while I'm talking. It's useful if you're driving your car, but if you're sitting in front of your computer or in front of some sort of device, you probably want to hear and see. So I thought I'd do a YouTube video, but this is much like my podcast. So my podcasts tend to be longer than my videos. They tend to be 25 minutes, half an hour long. I go into much more detail, much more exposition and discussion. And if you like that, great. And if you don't like that, hey, just watch the YouTube videos. I try to keep things as brief as I can. It really depends on the topic. Sometimes I get talking and I can't stop. But anyway, so here we are. I've got this Microsoft Excel file, and over the years, I keep adding tabs. Microsoft Excel has these things called tabs. You can see me clicking down here. You can always add tabs by just pressing this plus thing over here. But you can see if you go back to 2014, this is the first year that my garden was on this location. I've got 2 acres of land, and initially my garden was in the backyard, the lawn area. My wife said, why don't you move it further away from the house? And if you do that, you can make it as big as you like, and I'll get off your case. And that sounded good to me, so I moved it back here. So 2014 was the first year I had it on this location. And this is very early in the season, probably early July. And for this part of the province, especially, this part of the world, but also this part of the province, I don't normally have like cucumbers and things like that are tall. Everything tends to be still quite small. You can see the corn on the far right here is just barely getting going. Anyway, initially when my garden was small, all I would do at the end of the year, when my garden was really small, I wouldn't have a garden plan because you can usually remember where things were. And the whole point of having a garden plan, A, is to make sure you're rotating your crops. You're not planting the same sort of thing in the same place from year to year. 2 reasons to rotate, to move your crops around. One is that any given plant has its requirements are such that it takes certain things out of the soil. So if you're planting the same thing in the same soil every year, it's going to keep depleting whatever that nutrient or whatever it is, and probably not going to do well in subsequent years. Whereas if you're moving things around all the time, you got different plants growing in different soil every year. They're taking different things out. Some plants even put some things back, and the soil is able to recover from whatever the previous plant was. So it's very beneficial to do it that way. Another reason is if there's a particular pest that sets up shop on a particular kind of plant, you don't want to have that same plant in that same place the next year, because the pest's just going to be that much more happier. It's going to have even more children and become an even bigger problem. So by moving things around, if you're lucky, it confuses the pests and throws them off, and maybe gives their predators an advantage because they have to travel further to get to the food, takes them under their safety, all that sort of stuff. So there's, and from a nutrient point of view and from a keeping pests down, also from diseases, different kinds of diseases, soil-borne diseases and so on. If you've got a particular problem with a particular plant, by moving it, by planting that thing somewhere else the next year, plant something where that plant was the previous year that isn't bothered by that. So for instance, if you're planting tomatoes somewhere and they've got they've got blight, right? Well, just plant something in that space that doesn't have a blight problem at all the next year. So if you get tomatoes with blight, plant, carrots there the next year, right? Or if you've got a soil that you just notice whatever grew there didn't do well at all, maybe plant something that has very minimal requirements. Like if you tried to grow some kale and it just wasn't as big or as lush as you're used to seeing with kale, maybe in that garden you plant beans the next year, because beans grow well in very poor soils. And not only that, but beans will fix nitrogen in the soil, so they actually improve your soil, right? So there's lots of reasons to do that sort of thing. Anyway, that's 2014, and all I did was I took a picture of it at the end of the year, and I used these little things called text boxes to label, right, where everything was. So I know I put parsnips here and squash here and greens here and tomatoes here. You just use general categories. You don't need to write down the specific variety or anything like that. It's just a matter of what general category of plant was there. You don't want to have that same kind of thing there the next year. I mean, you can get very sophisticated with this, but I've found over time, as long as you keep moving things around, you don't have to be that sophisticated with it. At least that's been my experience. So I had this all labeled. So in 2015, I knew where everything had been, so I just planted things in a different place. So 2015, this is a picture I took at the end of 2015. I labeled it. You can see I got potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, parsnips, and so on. And I also got a little more sophisticated in 2015. At the end of the year, I jotted down where everything had grown. For the most part, I actually didn't do this whole area of the garden on the left didn't label that at all. But it's mainly because at the end of the year, I wanted to reorganize all of that. I also made notes down here. I said those circle gardens, I'm referring to the gardens over here. Those circle gardens don't make good use of the space, consolidate. So the following year, I reorganized that space a little bit to get more plants out of the area. They looked really nice, really cool looking circle gardens, but they really don't make the best use of the area from achieving a yield point of view. I said put plastic over the beds where squashes are going to grow, or they'll take forever to germinate. I had a really hard time that year, the spring of 2015, getting my squash to germinate. Some of my squash didn't germinate till the end of June. And given that a lot of squashes take 90 days to mature or more, it's a problem, right? So the reason you write down these notes is so that in the fall, when it's the end of the gardening season, you are fully aware of everything that went wrong. You've got a really clear sense of what did well and what did poorly. And so you have a kind of wisdom in the fall from your failures. And I have found that by the time spring rolls around, that wisdom's gone. You're so excited about the next season. You're going to plant this, and this is going to be awesome, and that's going to be awesome, and things are going to grow great. And man, you're going to have a great garden this year. by spring, if you're, I would say a natural gardener is a natural optimist. And in the spring, you're so excited, your optimism overwhelms any sort of good sense or wisdom. So it's good to have that stuff written down, almost like a parent reminding a child, right? Remember to do this, remember to do that, don't forget this, don't forget, because you're going to forget all this stuff. You're going to be so optimistic, you won't think you need to do this stuff. All right, even put a note here. The squash should have at least a 2x2 area for its roots, no less. And it usually says something like that in the package, but when you're planting squash, it's so hard to plant two plants 2 feet away from each other. It just seems like a football field. But once those plants are big, they need a lot of space, right? Yeah, it's good to write those things down so you don't forget. So that was this 2015 garden. Now in 2016, around this time of year. Around this time of year is when I come up with a plan. This is the time of year you're ordering your seeds, you're looking at seed catalogs, and all that sort of stuff. What am I going to plant? It's also a good time to make that plan. So in 2016, around February-ish, I came up with a plan for my garden. You notice it's the same picture, right? Same picture, but there's different labels on the boxes. Right? Because you base the 2016 plan on where things were in 2015. So all you do is 2016, you just go and you move things around, right? You're just rearranging. Where do I want that to go? Where do I want that to go? You're just moving stuff around. And if you're adding new things, you add those, right? So 2016, I come up with a plan. And another really good reason to come up with a plan is because it is very overwhelming in the spring, April 1st, or whenever you first get out there to plant. You go to your garden, you got a bag, it's got about 20 different kinds of seeds in it, and you're standing in the middle of this space, and you're like, oh, where am I going to put the carrots? Where am I going to put the potatoes? Where am I going to put this? Where am I going to put that? And it's overwhelming, depending on your personality, to right there on the spot decide where everything should go. And you spend a lot of time just staring at your garden, and it's kind of a waste of time. It's much more productive use of your time to begin that process in February, when there's no gardening to be done and you've got lots of time to mull it over. So I mean, you sit down in front of your computer, you lay it all out, and then you think about it. Maybe you go to bed and you're trying to get to sleep, and instead of counting sheep, you get a picture of your garden in your mind's eye, and you think of where everything should go. And for me, it's like a puzzle, and I'm trying to figure out what's the most I can do with this space. What plants companion plant the best? What things fit best with each other? What succession planting strategies should I use? By laying it all out on a picture like this with labels, you can start to begin that mental process in your mind. So, but by the time spring rolls around and it's time to plant, you've been thinking about it for a long time, and you're ready to hit the ground running, as opposed to hitting the ground in a bewildered, overwhelmed state. So you come up with your plan. So that was my 2016 plan for my 2016 garden that I came up with in February or March. But then, when 2016's over, of course, did I follow this plan to the letter? No, I did some things different. So in 2016, in the fall, I took another picture of the garden at the end. See, I reorganized the garden spaces, but I didn't follow the plan perfectly. If you look at the plan, it says 2016 plan was parsnips, carrots, tomatoes, peppers, onions, squash. Parsnips, carrots, tomatoes, peppers, onions, squash. I look at the garden, parsnips, carrots, tomatoes, beets, kale, peppers, potatoes, no squash here at all. I planted squash somewhere else. You can't even see. It's over on the left here. And I also planted some squash in my compost bins. So you come up with a plan, but you never follow your plan. You change your plan, but the plan gives you a place to start, and it gives you a jumping point, right? A point to jump off from. And you might go out in your garden, and instead of staring, you can just start planting. And I stuck to the plan for the most part, but I did, go off script a bit. Right? I said put potatoes along this border. My garden, all the way around the fence. Right? There's a 4-foot high fence around it. Without that fence, the garden would be destroyed by animals, right? This forest behind my garden goes on for miles, and it's full of black bears and deer and moose and rabbits and porcupines and raccoons and all kinds of things. But a lot of herbivores are in that forest, and they all love the garden. So you have to have at least a 4-foot fence. I've been lucky. I've read, many people have said 4 feet's not enough. For me, it's been okay for now. Once I went to the 4-foot high fence problem was solved. Before I had that, a lot of problems, right? Well, in 2014, I had a great garden. I had a little 2-foot high fence around here. But the following year, 2015, I had my entire garden wiped out twice. I mean, like, I had all, you notice around this perimeter here, you can't see anything growing. The previous year, oh, I got the angle wrong on this camera, but it was all strawberries and a beautiful, beautiful strawberry garden all the way around this border. In 2015, they were all eaten by a porcupine in 2 nights. The whole perimeter there was gone in 2 nights. Anyway, so I had the 2016 plan, then the 2016 garden, what I actually did, right? This is plan, this is an actual. So going into 2017, based on what now I know where everything actually went in 2016. In 2017, I came up with a new plan, right? A little more complex this year because I've got more garden to work with, and I thought about it a bit more, how to use the space, how to make the most of the space, and so on. And I stuck to this plan for the most part. So now it's time for me to make a 2017 garden, right? Put a picture here in Excel that says what I actually did in 2017. That's the first step. What did I do? Because this is just the plan here. This is what I planned to do in 2017, back in February 2017. This isn't what I did. It's what I planned to do. So let's look at what I did. So I'm going to show you how to do that. This is going to be a 2-part video. I'm going to show you how to put stuff into Excel and how to label it. And then on the weekend, I'll finish this video and I'll plan out, at least in part, my 2018 garden. Right here, live on YouTube. So how do we do this? For those that have never used Excel before, don't be overwhelmed. I know it's software that data people use, but it's really very similar to Microsoft Word or PowerPoint if you've used that before. You can just open it up, and to add a new tab, you just press this plus thing here. See how you hover over it, says new sheet. Just click that and you have a new sheet. It says sheet 1. You can just double click where it says sheet 1 and label it whatever you want. So I'm going to call it 2017 garden, right? First thing you have to do is remove all these annoying lines. You don't have to, but I like to. So you just go up to this pull down menu where it says view and click the thing that says grid lines. Now it's nice and blank. Now I can put my picture in. So now I need to get a picture. I need to get a picture of my actual 2017 garden. Oh, it's capitalized. That shouldn't be capitalized. Not that it matters, but all right. So I've got some pictures here of my garden in 2017, last summer. So just scroll through. I had a really good garden last year. I'm really happy with it. So that one's no good. It's a nice picture, but it's not. You need a sort of overhead picture. I'm lucky. There's a hill near my garden. I can climb up the hill and get overhead pictures like that. Which one's better? That one looks better to me. That's better. That's good. So if you don't have a hill near your garden, just go up on your roof, or if you've got a neighbor who's up from your deck, or if you've got a neighbor whose house overlooks your garden, or maybe you could climb a step ladder and take some pictures that way, or if you can put a ladder against a tree and go up that way. I mean, be safe, right? But or maybe you know someone that's spry that's willing to do that for you, or if you've got lots of money, you can get one of those cool flying camera things, a drone cam or whatever. Anyway, you get the picture. You need a fairly decent picture that overlays. This isn't ideal. An ideal picture would be from a drone camera directly above the garden. I haven't got that. You just work with what you got. Um, so now I'm going to put this picture in Excel, and I'm going to do that using another tool that comes standard with Microsoft Word, which is called a snipping tool. Where's the snipping tool? If you go into your Start menu, All Programs, and you choose the Accessories folder, there's a thing called the snipping tool, right? So you click that, and your screen goes kind of opaque, and you just using the left click button on your mouse, you hold it down and drag it over the area you want to take a picture of. What a snipping tool does is really handy for you know, taking content from online. Anything you drag it over, it makes a picture of it. So then you just drag it over that, you let go, and it takes a picture, and then you just choose copy, edit, copy. Then you go into Excel and click the top left-hand corner and paste it in. Right, you can paste it doing Control V. You can paste it by right-clicking and choosing the paste option, whatever you want to do. So you paste that in. Now that picture doesn't cover my entire garden. I still got some garden missing here, so I need another picture that can. So the left-hand side of my garden, to the left of this workbench, is not showing here. So I need more. So continue. So I need this. My garden last year ended here. This is where the fence is. And then this summer I made 5 new beds along here growing. Just these are all potatoes last summer. And they worked out quite well. I realized that I can have things outside the fence as long as I plant things that deer and rabbits and porcupines leave alone. And I know that they leave winter squashes alone because they've got tough skins. And they leave most of this nightshade family, like potatoes and tomatoes, they leave those things alone. So, there's a handful of things you can plant that those animals won't bother. There's better things, they'd rather eat the grass than try to eat those. Most of the nightshade family, potatoes, tomatoes, peppers, the animals view them as poisonous. The greens, anyway. So they'll stay away from that stuff. So I need this picture too. So I'll just use the snipping tool again. And just, I don't need all that. Just need what I need, like that. That's good. And copy. Snipping tool also has like a thing where you can sort of write like that if you want to. You can also erase what you just wrote. Boop. Anyway, copy, pop that into Excel right here. Right, so now I got pretty much the entire growing area in my garden. So now all I got to do is label this. What did I plant there last year? And I should have done this. Really, you should do this in December, late December. Do it before you forget where everything went. This year is unique for me because I did a lot of video, and I was out, I've been looking at my garden a lot because I'm editing all this video, so I've got a pretty good memory of where everything is. But before I was doing YouTube videos, of course, I wouldn't necessarily remember everything in detail. Also, I have a garden plan, so even if I forget, I can try to remember. That might jog my memory. I have a garden plan for 2017. Anyway, so we're going to label this. So we're going to use what's called a text box. So to find those, you just click Home, and you click Insert in the top left, and on the far top right, there's going to be the thing that says hyperlink. Thing that says a text and this equation symbol thing. So where it says text, you click the arrow pointing down, and there's an option called the text box. You click that, and your cursor becomes this upside down cross thing, if you can see down the top right hand corner, or moving it around, and that allows you to draw text boxes into places. You just use a left click and you sort of drag it, and see how I'm making a square here? Right, so you make a small square where your garden bed is, where you want to put your label. There's 1,000 different ways to do this in Excel. This is probably the most low-tech. There's fancier, nicer ways to do everything. Anyway, this is really simple. I thought to keep it simple. It doesn't really matter how fancy it is, right? As long as it works. And you just write in the box, right? So I know there was cucumbers here. Right, that's all I got to write. cukes. Doesn't matter what variety. The main thing is don't plant cucumbers there in 2018. That's all I'm telling myself. Don't do that there. They worked out great. Don't do that there. Now to make your next box, it's even easier. You just don't click where the text goes, but sort of click on the outer edge of the box. See how the cursor is like a straight line, but when I drag it down, it becomes this plus thing. So when it becomes that plus, you can click it. You can right click and choose this option, copy. And then you can right click anywhere on the picture and click this icon here, which means paste. And I don't know why it does that, but it won't paste it where you told it to paste. It'll paste it in the top left-hand corner. It's probably because that's where I pasted the picture as a reference point. Anyway, all you got to do is drag that over. Right? If you click on the outer edge of it, don't click on the picture. You click on the outer edge of the box, it'll drag the text box. All right, so I had cucumbers here. So here I had summer squash. Now I can just, if I press Control V, it'll keep generating these text boxes. So I might as well just put one over everything. Control V is a quick key for paste, something called the quick key. So now I can label all of these, right? I'm not going to do the whole thing here live on YouTube because it's going to get really boring, but just to give you a sense of how to do this, so you can, if you're interested in trying this, maybe you can go try it over the next few days and send me questions, and I'll answer them on the weekend when I do the follow-up video. So summer squash, and then this garden was kale. It was kale and Brussels sprouts and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. It's basically that family, that brassica family. Don't plant brassicas there. Don't plant anything like that. Don't plant any sort of thing that comes from a mustard seed. This one was tomatoes. So I know I can't plant any sort of tomato or even a nightshade. So I really shouldn't plant potatoes there either. This one was beets, and this one was parsnips, and this one was carrots. Right, so that's the idea. So I'm going to continue on and do this entire. It's a bit sloppy. Tomatoes. I'm going to continue on and do this entire garden. I'll label the whole thing, and I'll follow up on Saturday or Sunday with another video where I show what it looks like when the whole thing's been labeled, and also I'll show you how I plan out the garden. Alright, so I hope you found this useful. If you've been thinking about trying something like this, and if you're like me and you're apprehensive about installing new software on your computer or messing around with something like that, you just want to use what's already there, and maybe you've got some minimal skill with Excel. You're not going to blow your computer up by trying anyway. Open up Excel and just try to do what I showed you here and see how it goes. Muddle through and see how it works. I find it works great. And and that way you've got this running record of your garden. You can come back to year after year, and it's kind of neat to scroll through the pictures and see the progression, the change over time, right? So thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this, check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com, and like us on Facebook, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, get out there, get at it, and have fun on your computer. Thanks for listening. Bye.